Okay, this may be completely irrelevant and I may be completely splitting hairs, and I completely accept if I am, because I'm not the kind of person who, I can split hairs over some things, but time is not usually something I would split hairs about. I'm the late person, put it that way. I'm completely time blind. But this, I've noticed, just because of making these videos and I try and get things right, and I am a self-doubter, so I will always think I've got something wrong and go back and double check it, because I noticed, I thought I'd been saying the time wrong when I saw this. I thought, where have I got 11:58 from? Because it's 11:56 on in the crime log, in the police activity log, right? I know this sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but stay with me here, okay? And it may be completely irrelevant, okay? And then I know that Paradox, Big County put the logs online as well, but I know some people are more familiar with these and might think that I've got some fake logs or something. So I just want to show that this is the same, exactly the same. I've cross-referenced it many a time.
That I posted regarding the police daily activity logs from November 13th. I don't know. I guess somebody's going to read back through these, and I'm just here.
I really enjoyed this lady's videos, but she didn't do many of them. I think she's now it's not a tarot card reader. Something similar to that, but I don't think it's tarot. But I hadn't realised that initially when she was. I really enjoyed her videos on the King Road homicides. So,
unfortunately, the date. Well, wow.
Paradox. This is.
Oh.
I can't see that very well. Here we go.
So, 11:33 a.m.
So there we go, 11:56. I'm pretty sure, actually no, it's not on the WSU log, but it is, have a look here. I want to show you something else in a moment, you see. I've got to find which one it is. I think I need to do, here we go. So this is the update, Washington State University on the 13th. Now this one says 11:58, right? So why have they got the time as 11:58 and Moscow have got it as 11:56? But there's something else which I found interesting, which could just be a weird coincidence, and probably is, but I'm going to show you anyway. Just, I thought, it's been in the back of my mind for a while since I noticed it. So let's just read this in case there's something else to know. Moscow police officers responded to a call on King Road for an unconscious individual. Upon arrival, officers discovered 4 individuals who were deceased. The Moscow Police Department is asking any individuals who may have information to call the Moscow Police Department. Oh, I've just thought there's something else that could go in, that could feed into this as well. Because in the Whitman County logs, they were searching for a subject. And from 2:30, something like that, not exactly, any time between 2 and 3, 2:30, something like that. They'd asked for help, the sheriff's office had asked for help looking for a subject. I don't think they'd asked for help specifically off WSU, but the lines seem to be so blurred between universities and police departments. It seems like WSU and Pullman probably work together, but Latah County log logs, not the tar, sorry, Whitman County logs, then had nothing in the log for 5 hours after this, like they were searching for this subject. I found it a little bit interesting. Now I'm starting to think, maybe it was WSU. They said police were there when they got there, right? And we're being told it's Mitch Nunes, Corbin Smith, and then later Anthony Dallinger starts getting mentioned, but he's not always mentioned in this equation, but sometimes he is. But what if it's WSU? Because they've got the correct time, apparently. They've got the time that Fry's been saying. Okay, this is Lewiston activity logs for the 13th. Okay, let me just show you, because not everybody's going to know this. Now, Lewiston and Clarkston, they're symbiotic as well, a little bit like Pullman and Moscow, but I think even more so. Clarkston is just over the border of Washington, whereas Lewiston is just over the border of Idaho. We know that Brian Kohberger, we believe from the PCA that Brian Kohberger travelled to Clarkston on the 13th. I don't remember what time that was. Went to Albertsons. Okay. So, and just see where it is in relation to Moscow. So Moscow's up there, and the distance is about half an hour. Okay, you're just going to have to trust me on that. Okay, so we've got suicidal person. Now, I'm not sure if this suicidal person might be a different suicidal person than the next suicidal person. I'm not laughing at suicidal people. I'm just laughing at my own, Subject is actively suicidal. Is somewhere on the levee. I don't know what that is. In a grey Toyota Corolla. Jumped off a bridge 2 weeks ago and took pills 4 weeks ago. Okay. They don't say where the reports are taken on this. Okay, then we've got agency assist. That's not relevant, I don't think. So that's Walmart, white Kia, Seoul, Hispanic, male, stole tools. 2 to 3 in the vehicle. Well, as far as I know, it's not relevant anyway. But then at 11:58 and 17 seconds, we have suicidal person on 400 block of 6th Street. And there's also a 6th Street in Moscow, isn't there? Interestingly. Disposition, INA, what's that? I don't know what that means. In the ER, trying to leave. Okay, so is it just reported at this point that they're trying to leave? Now, it's made me think, were they trying to leave? People tried to stop this person leaving, right? And then they said, I've got to get back to the house because this has happened. Because maybe this person was, they could have overdosed and not been with it before when they were taken in. We don't know how they ended up in the hospital. They might not have been compos mentis, or they might not have felt comfortable enough to trust the authorities, which is, is there an issue with trusting the authorities here? Okay, and then we have this person again trying to leave, I think. We have a suspicious male at 2:18, male in blue sweatpants, black and white hoodie at the corner, is talking about arson and using profanity, acting very strange. Then we're back to the suicidal person. Now it's 2:26. Incident address. But they are at the subject just left on a mental hold, left out the north entrance in a blue patient scrub. They're on a mental hold. And they've left. So I was very intrigued by this when I saw it, particularly because it's at 11. That's interesting. The juvenile problems written after this one. Wrong order. Yeah, it's 11:58. And the Moscow murders, the King Road homicides, are reported on the logs at 11:56. Both the logs, it's the same log, but it's just on two different websites. But in WSU, they've got 11:58. And we hear it out of Chief Fry's mouth, 11:58. I'll play it for you. He says 11:58. Am I just splitting hairs here? Am I just making associations that are probably completely irrelevant? I mean, we don't know for sure. I know nobody can know but those involved in this case. But I thought I'd sort of raise it for people to be aware of and just know about, and please don't jump to conclusions about it. Please don't assume that you know who this person is, or we don't know. Interesting, eh?
The Federal Bureau of Investigation detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohlberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on a warrant for on the morning of November 13th. A 911 call was made at 11:58 a.m., reporting an unconscious person at the residence. To recap this case, on the evening of November 12th, Kaylee and Madison arrived home at about 1:56 a.m. after visiting a local bar and street food vendor. Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house before arriving home around 1:45 a.m. The two surviving roommates had also been in the community but returned around 1 a.m. On the morning of November 13th, a 911 call was made at 11:58 a.m., reporting an unconscious person at the residence, Brian Christopher Kohlberger, in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania.
I actually managed to find a different article regarding, with Brian Nickerson, the fire chief. And incidentally, if you haven't watched the previous video, the fire department are also the EMS department in Latah County, and I think also in Pullman, although they have their own departments, but they are largely volunteers, and they are largely college volunteers from the University of Idaho that work as EMTs. Moscow Fire Chief Brian Nickerson told the Statesman Monday morning that his department was dispatched to the residence of 1122 King Road on a medical call just before noon on Sunday. So they were dispatched on a medical call, right? His volunteer department sent an ambulance and a fire engine, which he said is standard for such calls. That sounds... Really? Is it? Maybe it is. But they're told it's an unconscious person. I wouldn't have thought that's standard for an unconscious person. Okay. But none of his team ended up entering the home. We weren't there very long, Nickerson said by phone. The police department was there prior to us arriving. So we determined we didn't need to do anything at that point. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Are these two different calls? They were already there. He said he was called on a medical call. I was looking at a case before. There's a reason I'm saying this. You might have heard of it, in Riverside County, California, Pinyon Pines, horrific triple homicide. They did need literally the fire department, not just EMS, because the house had been set on fire, and so had one of the victims, who was in a wheelbarrow. And people, there were 911 calls, right? But there were also people calling the fire department directly, and there was even somebody who went and knocked on their door of the fire department. Now, the fire department for the University of Idaho, for Moscow, is based at the University of Idaho. And the fire department itself is on Main Street in Moscow, right? But they have accommodation for the college students. Now, they said how convenient it is with, in another article, you know, this was a good thing because they were right there, kind of thing. The MVFD, which is the Moscow Volunteer Fire Department, offers a student residency program with the fire stations around Moscow. The program offers, plural, fire stations. The program offers free housing in the fire stations and on-duty training, as well as driver and operator training. Student residents make up around 25% of MVFD. Oh, not as much as I thought. MVFD volunteers. Okay. But it depends how many hours they do, doesn't it? So it might be that they're 25%, but they might work more hours from the others to the other 75%. So it's more going to go on hours worked, isn't it, really? So could it be that they received the 11:56 or 58 call, unless there were two calls, one at 11:56 and one at 11:58? Who knows? Maybe they were two very close together. One place was called and then the other one. That's possible. Or how do we know how long the police had already been there? Because we've also got the coroner on paper on death certificates pronouncing death at 12 o'clock. I really don't think that she can do that unless she's actually there. And I don't feel like she's the kind of person. She looks like a cautious type. I just don't feel like she would do that if she wasn't there. I mean, I don't know, but... So what I'm wondering, and then we've got Brett Payne saying he didn't turn up till 4:30. Now, that actually does... There were investigators in this fire who turned up later, but then again, they've got to wait for an entire fire to be put out in the Pinyon Pines case. But they didn't turn up till the early hours of the morning, and I was really surprised at that. It was like a long time, because this fire started at like 7 p.m. or something. So what I'm wondering, and I heard Lana from TNT, who I always tend to mention because she has found quite a lot of information. that she had noted at previous call-outs that Brett Payne hadn't put his body camera on. And she was saying how that can become a habit with people. And, you know, if he hasn't done it once, has he not done it another time? So could it be that they were there earlier without body cameras on? So he claims to have been there later, but either he forgot to put his body camera on or he chose not to put it on. And so they just go from the time that he put his body camera on. I just wonder if how long they'd already been there. How long were they there for? That then according to a video that I'm about to play, the coroner should be there to pronounce death if there is a death that is suspicious. And fair enough, if she's not there and it's somebody else, and you know, and if it's fine for it to be somebody else, that's fine. But why does it say her name? Because that surely would be illegal. You can't say that you pronounce death and put it in writing with your name when you didn't, when somebody else did it. The U of I posted an alert on social media, and you will see this as all sorts of different times, but this article says 3:07 p.m. Sunday that said, 3:07 p.m. Sunday that said police were investigating homicide on King Road. The post said the suspect was not known at the time and advised students to stay away from the area and shelter in place. Oh, this is interesting. Editor's note, an earlier version of this story misidentified the home where the deceased students were found at as a converted apartment based on incorrect information from Moscow police. Do they just have a problem with attention to detail? A converted apartment. I mean, it could be a house converted into apartments. Police continue to investigate the deaths. So I think this is a follow-up article. Police responded to a call Sunday, and this is interesting, so we've got a name that doesn't come up usually here. Police responded to a call Sunday afternoon that reported, not afternoon, but never mind, that reported an unconscious individual, according to a police news release. The incident occurred in the 1100 block of King Road in Moscow. When officers arrived just before noon, they didn't receive it until afternoon, but they arrived before noon. They found all 4 people dead. Moscow Police Captain Tyson Barrett told the Idaho Statesman Sunday, and you will find now that his name comes up repeatedly. I'm trying to find it now. Look, we've got it down here at the bottom of here. Captain Tyson Barrett told us it happened at a home that was converted into an apartment. So this is another article where he said this. That's a different news company. Here we go. This is the Washington State message for students. I don't think it's the alert. It's just an update or something. Last paragraph, Captain Tyson Barrett is the case agent for this incident. And you'll see this in other places. The case agent, and it says here, the case agent is the lead in an investigation. And this requires the ability to manage a number of different unglamorous tasks, personalities, and resources. Looking, here we go, Tyson Barrett's mentioned here again. Before Fry's appointment he was captain of the campus division, right, which oversees the University of Idaho's police force. Which oversees the University of Idaho's police force. Right, okay. It is the University of Idaho's police force, isn't it? Okay. That division is now run by 25-year department veteran Captain Tyson Barrett. Why don't we hear anything about Tyson Barrett? Here's another one. Last paragraph. Moscow police are asking the public for any information that may help with the investigation. Contact Captain Tyson Barrett, is the case agent for this incident. There we go. Okay, this is interesting. I am a little bit hung up on this bloody 911 call, but hopefully you are a bit too. So this is out of 911, changes to the process for... Sorry, did I say out of 911? I'm very tired. And that's pretty much the same every time I make a video. Changes were made October 2022. But this is for Spokane. But it does make you wonder if other areas around, surrounding areas may have made the same changes. Whitcomb 911 is the organisation that deals with 911 calls, right? It deals with Pullman and Moscow, so that's kind of weird because it's over the state border. But now I don't know how common this is in the United States, because in the UK we have 999, not 911, right? And most people don't ever call it for the police. Like, it would be so rare that you call... most people associate 999 with a medical emergency, and you are immediately asked, what is your emergency? So you just say, or no, which service do you require? They ask. And so you say if it's fire, ambulance or police. 9 times out of 10, it would probably be ambulance. I think there might be a voluntary ambulance service, but it's not for medical emergencies. It's an ambulance service for more like moving the elderly around from different places and disabled people and things. As far as I know, I'm not aware of at all any private companies or any volunteer companies. Everybody's paid. They're called paramedics over here. I'm just explaining, because it might... so then you could explain how things work for you, but then it might depend on the state. But... and it is only for medical emergencies. It is really frowned upon to call for any other reason. Mental health does come into medical emergency. So mental health is largely dealt with through 999. And it's really a shame, actually, that people don't realise that mental health does come under medical emergency, because I have had to call it for that reason, although I didn't know it was for that reason, because if you have a panic attack, I don't know if anybody out there will be plenty of people I expect who suffer with panic attacks, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that and a medical emergency when it's happening. It feels like a medical emergency, so it's very confusing until you've had them more frequently, and even then your rational brain has completely left your body and you're basically operating on adrenaline. So yeah, it's just for emergencies, so we don't really like that. It's it's actually become an online service pretty much to get in contact with police about any like non-emergency things. It's quite ridiculous. Hold on, I'm just having somebody deliver something. But our ambulance service has become really overstretched as well. Our NHS, our National Health Service, is in a really bad state. I have just received an appointment to see a neurologist in 2025. I thought I'd missed the appointment. It said January the 9th. And then I realised it said 2025. Like, I don't know how long you'd have to wait for a neurologist appointment over there, but it's quite shocking. Anyway, back to this. So, but Whitcomb 911, which is the service, the dispatch service in it's based in Pullman, but it's for Moscow and Pullman, and it is not just for emergencies, it is for non-emergencies. And I just couldn't believe it when I was reading things on the police activity log, because I was like, wow, what kind of a service is this? Because these things don't seem like emergencies, half of them. So I've got the amount of things about dogs. Police won't deal with dogs over here. You'd have to call somebody else for that, probably a vet, or the RSPCA. But Milo, no. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts, isn't it? There'll be good things and bad things about different services, but I can understand why they would want to keep it down to emergencies. But then if you listen to this, I wonder if there was a call, if it may have not been considered emergency, right? If you were to say there was somebody left your house, somebody there, but they'd gone, you'd seen them go. Now, would they fall into the category that this guy says would be considered an emergency? So have a listen.
That's right. The Spokane Police Department announced that they're making changes to how they respond to 911 calls starting this Monday. People may no longer get a fast response from police or fire.
And just to remind you, this is October 2022.
Depending on how serious their emergency is. Starting on October 31st, Shrek will still answer 911 calls, but only dispatch police and fire in urgent matters that impact people's safety. If a crime is in progress or someone is having a medical emergency, first responders will deploy.
Now, if Dylan had gone back in her room, assuming that this is all accurate that's in the PCA, we don't know that it is. I know a lot of people have doubts about it, but let's just suspend that for a moment and think about this scenario where it is accurate. And the attacks seemingly occurred within the rooms, or at least with the case. To be honest, it wouldn't even need to be in the rooms. Even if their bodies were in the hallways, Dylan wouldn't be able to see from where she was. She wouldn't be able to see upstairs. She wouldn't be able to see down that corridor. I'm really not sure about what people are talking about smelling blood. You wouldn't know what a smell was if you could smell it anyway. How familiar are you with the smell of blood? I really don't think it would be. If the door had been left open as well, then it depends how cold. Bodies don't deteriorate that quickly. Only in warm conditions do they. It's unlikely. And the house might smell of booze. People might have been smoking in the house. And the other thing I wondered about as well, with her asking, like telling people to quieting down or something. I've wondered about music because I'm just thinking about there's 2 rooms, so that's kind of making me think, I don't know. But are you familiar with the Israel Keys, Samantha Koenig murder? He killed her in his shed. His family are in the house. Well, his wife, I'm not sure if the daughter was there, but the wife was there, or practically his wife. If she wasn't, she might have been his common law wife. And he played extremely loud heavy metal music in the shed the entire time. So this girl sat there terrified, tied up, terrified. She's been plied with booze just to, I don't know, calm her down or something. And so there's God knows why neighbours wouldn't complain, why his wife wouldn't have heard it, this very loud music, unless she just thought it was coming from a different house. But and it did make me wonder about music. I'm off piece a little bit here. But anyway.
For calls that are not as urgent, the Shrek dispatcher will...
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, so she might have ended up going downstairs, because if there was music playing, nobody was turning it off, she got a bit spooked because of this person, and she, rather than go, I mean, she'd have to go up the stairs, and rather than the confrontation or anything like that, she may have just then gone into her room, and then once she felt calmed down, she might have texted people, didn't she? She did text the other roommates and nobody answered, but she might have texted Bethany, and Bethany said, come down here. I don't know. This is just me considering possibilities. I know there'll be people who are completely stuck on what they've decided has happened, and we're not even considering another possibility. But you don't know. I'm sorry. I know you think you know, but you don't. You just don't know. And it's really narrow-minded to just stick with... It's basically what many of us have accused the police of doing, tunnel vision. Don't get into tunnel vision. So it is possible that she couldn't be sure whether this guy was actually... It's even possible that he spoke with her, pretended he was somebody else, like campus security or something like that. He could have said that he brought one of them home because they were intoxicated or put to bed, kind of thing. We don't know that he didn't speak to her. It doesn't say that he did. We don't know that he didn't. He didn't. We don't know. Things have clearly been left out. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is that she just couldn't decide because she's seen people she felt alarmed, probably because she just walked out, didn't expect to see somebody right in front of her, and they're wearing a mask. But it is a COVID mask, and maybe once she spoke with Bethany or texted Bethany may have just said, oh, it was probably so-and-so, or it was, oh, just come down here. I think there's a lot of coming and going, I reckon. I know I said in my last video about the possibility of it being a frat annex there, and those girls may have been there only because they were there with males. I don't know, but we have got some pictures of them in rooms there, but we don't know if they're there with their boyfriends. Like, I'd have pictures of myself at my boyfriend's house. We don't know if other pictures have been taken down. Maybe I'm reaching a bit there. I don't know. There's lots of things that point me different directions. I need to carry on with this.
Stay on the line with the caller and forward their information to the correct department to check on later.
For the emergency calls where it's in progress and there is an imminent threat, there should be no change to the way that those...
But who is ever going to get the opportunity to call somebody when there's an imminent... I mean, no, Occasionally you might. But if the imminent threat's just walked out the door, how do you know they're not coming back in the door? Maybe they did.
Calls are processed. Where the public may notice a difference is going to be in the lower acuity calls. So perhaps a suspect has left, something did happen.
Police hope this change allows them to prioritize
The lower acuity calls, imminent threat.
Just want to hear that bit again.
There should be no change to the way that those calls are processed. Where the public may notice a difference is going to be in the lower acuity calls. So perhaps a suspect has left, something did happen.
Police hope this change allows them.
So there's going to be a change in exactly the scenario I just described. The suspect has left, something did happen, there's going to be change. So police are not coming, they're not treating it as emergency. That was in Spokane, that's not so far away. Could it have been the same with Whitcomb? Whitcomb 911, which is, as I say, the dispatch team for Pullman, and Moscow.
To prioritize high demand situations. SPD says it is navigating staffing shortages, and when the vaccine mandate is lifted on Monday, 5 unvaccinated firefighters who are working as dispatchers can now go back out on the streets, which means Shrek will take on additional work.
We are not making this.
Wow, that's interesting that it was still, COVID was still affecting whether people could work or not back then. So that could have been an issue at the time.
Change because we were unhappy with the way things were, but because of the staffing constraints that both organizations, actually the city and county organizations collectively have, this is the realignment of duties.
With the change, the Spokane Police Department says that people with non-urgent calls will have to be on hold for 2 to 3 minutes. This varies based on the call volume. Shrek says that they sometimes receive up to 80 911 calls an hour, and police and fire dispatchers don't have the capacity to field all the calls. Shrek encourages people to use a crime check number for crimes that aren't an emergency at 509-456-2233.
So, could Moscow have a non-urgent crimes number that they've encouraged people to call? The other thing I wanted to show you is it's this about interpreting the crime log. Okay. Now, this is all about covering campus crime, okay. But the confusing thing with Moscow is that the campus division is part of Moscow Police Department, whereas, for example, in Pullman and WSU are 2 separate police departments. So this could affect Moscow, but this would only affect WSU. Where it gets complicated is the fact that it's an off-campus house. But these police were adamant that it was a sorority house, so they know that they're college students. So it could still possibly come under this. So what I'm going to show you is, I don't want to read irrelevant bits. This bit is maybe not relevant, but I'll read this bit. Note that some incidents. Right, let's go from the top. If you fast forward it a bit, if you want to, I don't know. The Federal Crime Awareness and Security Act of 1990 requires all post-secondary institutions participating in Title. Oh God, my Roman numerals are terrible. Is that a 4 or a 6? 4. In Title 4, Student Financial Assistance Programs, to disclose campus crime statistics and security information. In compliance with the federal reporting requirement, the daily crime log records all criminal incidents and alleged criminal incidents, right? But there isn't a separate crime log for U of I, whereas there is for I can't see one for Pullman, but I think Pullman might come under Whitman County. So I think clearly the crime log all comes as one thing, because we've seen student crimes on there. We've seen the Banfield thing and the alcohol, the girl who was done for underage drinking. So it's all going on that crime log, isn't it? So some incidents with a case number involve information received from other university administrators who are defined by federal law as campus security authorities. These administrators share non-identifying information with the university police that is provided by the victim. In these incidents, the victim did not file an official police report. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? And therefore, it is not... Well, that's very interesting, because it almost always says report no report taken. So they're saying the victim didn't file a police report, but it doesn't really seem like it's in the hands of the victim. The victim probably assumes that a police report will be filed and probably thinks that would be normal procedure, which I would in a lot of these cases. The victim did not file an official police report, and therefore it is not always possible to provide information regarding the 5 areas typically covered in the crime log, i.e. report number, offence, date reported, date occurred, time, general location, synopsis, disposition. That sounds like a bit of a get-out clause there. Because an official report was not filed, there will be no disposition. I don't know what that means. These incidents... I'm going to have to look it up. Disposition. But that's not going to come up with it in this context, is it? I don't know what it means in this context. You'll have to tell me in the comments. We're back here. Okay. These incidents are reported to the university police for statistical purposes and are posted to the crime log as the information is received by the university police. Okay, so interesting to know, what if it was university police that dealt with this? Do they always record things in the crime log? But here, this is the bit that I wanted to show you. And it says this, I've seen this on several websites. According to federal law, an institution may withhold any of the required fields of entry, i.e. the nature, date, time, location and or disposition, if any of the following conditions apply. The disclosure is prohibited by law. If disclosure would jeopardise the confidentiality of the victim. If disclosure would jeopardise an ongoing criminal investigation on the safety of an individual. If disclosure would cause a suspect to flee or evade detection. If disclosure would result in the destruction of evidence. Now in our minds, it might be that none of those would be affected by the 911, if there was a 911 call earlier, of it being in the crime log. But they're the police, and they could. I've heard them talk nonsense. I've heard Chief Fry answer questions and just say the most ridiculous thing because he just couldn't answer the question. And I think he would have probably been better off just not giving information at all, because now you just don't know what's true and what's not. So, and everybody just accepting that. So I think they could get away with not recording it and then justifying it under one of these, because they didn't act, as far as we know, they didn't act early enough. It might have been that they got there and there was nothing they could do, and it might be that the bodies were all removed, earlier. I know we've got all these reports from the family members and the friends and stuff were over there, but we don't know who these people are on these. That Dave, he sounded quite genuine, but there's different people popping up, and it's hard to know who is bona fide and who isn't. And it could be the case that, like I said, she just did go downstairs with Bethany, and that somehow these crimes, you just could not really hear anything. The other thing is, other people have said that they've been threatened. And there are other possibilities, which I'll go into in other videos. But I think I might have... I think that I might be better off leaving it that for now. But so, look, this is another different website that says the same thing. According to federal law, an institution may withhold any of the required fields of entry, nature, time, date, location, and or disposition, if any of the following apply. The disclosure is prohibited by law. I don't know what that means. I don't know what disclosure would be prohibited by law. If disclosure would jeopardise the confidentiality of the victim, if disclosure would jeopardise an ongoing criminal investigation or the safety of an individual, if disclosure would cause a suspect to flee or evade detection, if disclosure would result in the destruction of evidence. So, right, so to be fair, this is from 1994, but the next thing that I show you makes it appear like this may not have improved. So, the headline is Latah County Challenger claims coroners are not involved enough. Moscow incumbent Latah County coroner Daniel Schmidt, right, so he was the coroner back then. A 40-year-old Moscow family physician said cooperation between his office and the sheriff's department has saved taxpayer dollars. So maybe what I said before about there being two coroners may be incorrect because I hadn't noticed the date at the time, but as I say, this is still relevant because it leads on to something more recent. But his challenger in Tuesday's election, so that means this guy was challenging him for the position of coroner then, because they're elected, I presume. So his challenger, Republican Paul C. Van der Linden, claims he was encouraged by Sheriff's Department deputies to run for election and bring much needed investigative skills to the job. The person who's coroner now doesn't go to the scene of death as often as he should, said Van der Linden, 34. who has 12 years of police experience in LA County in California, it's not necessarily a physician's job. So, like I said before, I think the coroner, sometimes if a physician can go, the coroner doesn't go. Schmidt said a sheriff's deputy whose law enforcement duties, I wonder if she went. She looked like, I don't know if she'd actually seen that scene. She looked like she was very tight-lipped. She didn't want to say too much, but I wonder if she was actually able to say much, because maybe she hadn't actually seen the scene. I'm speculating, obviously, but there's something about her response that was somewhat strange. Kathy Mabbott I'm talking about, obviously. The arrangement results in a small drain on the sheriff's budget, Schmidt said, but costs the county less overall than if the coroner had to investigate. So if they use a physician, it's cheaper than if the coroner had to investigate all deaths himself or hire a deputy coroner from outside the sheriff's department. Yeah, but you shouldn't be doing it within the sheriff's department, should you? They're supposed to be separate. The reason for having a coroner is to determine if there's foul play, said Van der Linden. That often requires crime scene investigative skills more than a physician's expertise, he said. Well, there's no requirement that a coroner be a doctor, Schmidt said. Non-physician coroners tend to do too much. That's a fair point. The vast majority, I mean, what is their training? Like their pre-training, there doesn't seem to be much in the way of pre-training. The vast majority of deaths are of the unattended variety, he said, and most of those don't require a lot of investigation. By law, the coroner's duties are to investigate all homicides and suicides, as well as accidental and unattended deaths. So, yeah, I don't know if this guy ever got in, Van der Linden, but yeah, he was concerned that the coroner was not attending, and it seems like the police were concerned about it as well. Where did he say it? He was encouraged by Sheriff's Department deputies to run for election and bring much needed investigative skills to the job. Right, now look at this. So, Office of the Medical Examiner, this is Spokane, this is 2019 report. Right, referral caseload. In addition to assuming statutory responsibility for unexpected deaths in Spokane County, the Medical Examiner's Office performs autopsies for 13 outside counties in eastern Washington and the Idaho Panhandle. In 2019, a total of 123 autopsies were performed for the following referral counties. So as you can see, Latah is in there, and Kootenai and Nez Perce are in there, and Bonner, I know those, and Clearwater, they're all definitely, and Shoshone, they're all Idaho. The referral relationship is established by memorandums of agreement. But look at this, okay? Look at Latar. So Latar's about halfway down, just after Kootenai. But if you look at Kootenai, that's how many autopsies were performed. 2019 40, 2018 40. But look at this, okay? Look at Latar. So Latar's about halfway down, just after Kootenai. But if you look at Kootenai, that's how many autopsies were performed. 2019 40, 2018 42, 53, 46, going along 50, 57, 49, 47. Then you look at Latar, 3 in 2019, and then all the rest say not applicable. What does that mean? Were there any autopsies performed? Were there no suspicious deaths in all those years? Obviously, this doesn't go right up to date, so we don't know what's happened in 2020, 21 and 22. Not from this anyway. I might see if I can find a more up-to-date version. This format, right? And in 2020, they had a new state-of-the-art facility. And this is the last report that actually provides this information here. It's not in the subsequent ones, so there isn't a list of the counties, but there is a map showing the counties that they perform autopsies for. Now we can see that out of county work has increased in 2020, but you can't see it on the subsequent reports. You can't see anything about how many autopsies were performed from outside counties, right? And Latar, still only 5 autopsies performed, right? That is in, right? And then, oh, hold on. So this is 2021, and you see the format is different. This must be the new medical centre, right? Or medical centre? Medical examiner's facility. And now, see, here's the new facility. Accreditation, Case jurisdiction. Okay, so it shows a map. And there's a new area down at the bottom of Washington. And here, in the process section, in the last paragraph, not there, sorry. See, that's it. I don't think there's anything. Has it even... I'm sure it did actually mention that they go to, or maybe it just shows the map. Referral counters are in yellow. It doesn't even mention it there. So, I don't really know. Wow. Gee whiz. This is the 2022 annual report. If I put the... Let's just check it's on. Yes, the microphone is on. Well done. This is the 2022 annual report. And look how much ground they are covering. Spokane is covering, doing autopsies in all these places. Busy bees. Bloody hell. Okay, let me just see if there is. Sorry, I'm working on the hoof, off the hook. Chief Medical Examiner, Deputy Medical, I was interested to look at this. Deputy Medical Examiner, there's two of them. Operations Manager, Deputy Medical Investigator, 7. 3 autopsy assistants. There are 4 forensic pathologist positions. That's not this. So the medical examiner is or isn't a forensic. So with the top 4, the medical examiner, the operations, well, you wouldn't think an operations manager would be. Hold on, now what's it saying? Including the chief medical examiner and the 3 deputy medical examiners, says 2 there. One of the deputy medical examiner positions is currently unfilled. Aha, I see. The medical examiners make decisions about case jurisdiction, deciding the scope and course of a death investigation, attend death scenes when appropriate. I would have thought it was appropriate. Conduct post-mortem examinations, order lab tests, review records and test results, formulate medical diagnoses, certify deaths, generate autopsy reports, and provide court testimony. 7 positions in the investigations department. Okay, so deaths that must be reported to the medical examiner. I mean, there's no doubt this is one of them. All deaths in children. So anything that's a grey area. Cause and manner of death. Well, we know the difference between those. So, for example, stabbing would be the cause and the manner would be homicide. Process. Deaths reported. It's gone down. Oh, I suppose that's COVID, is it? Oh, well, no, 2021. Probably loads of bloody suicides. Hold on, what's the difference in the jurisdiction released, jurisdiction accepted? Oh. So they're rejecting lots, is that the case? Medical examiner assumed jurisdiction in only 38% of these reported deaths, or in 15.4 of all deaths in the county. What county? Seem to be covering lots of counties. Spokane's a county though, as well as a city, isn't it? I think. Yeah. So it handled 272 cases for outside counties, a 35% increase over 2021 and a 63% increase over 2020. Exposure deaths, natural deaths due to cardiovascular disease, fatal drug overdoses. In 2022, there were nearly 5 times as many drug-related deaths as motor vehicle fatalities. From 2021 to 2022, there was a 36% increase in fentanyl-related overdose deaths in Spokane County, continuing a trend which has resulted in an astonishing 425% increase from 2020 to 2022. Good God. Fentanyl was detected in 72% of all accidental overdoses in 2022. Information from scene investigation in these cases indicates that naloxone was present in less than 25% of cases. Deaths in unhoused persons, homeless. Manner of death overview. Only 3.99% were homicides. A lot of accidents. There's probably more suicides there than there have actually been admitted to. Because interesting thing that I discovered, so they say that the suicide rate for women is lower than for men, but I found that in the UK, and I wonder if it might be the same over there, overdoses are frequently, and it's different over here because we don't have the fentanyl problem over here, so we're not having these accidental overdoses. But women's main mode or manner of means of suicide is overdose. That's well known. And these overdoses are frequently being chalked up to accidents, undetermined or accidents, because they have decided that women, it could have been a cry for help. It's not really helping women, though, have suicide taken more seriously. You know, somebody who is saying they're suicidal as a female just may not be taken as seriously as a male. And I've experienced that myself, to be honest. And it's because of this, them deeming it a cry for help. It might be. But then it means somebody needs help, doesn't it? Manner of death trend. To 2022. So look at all those accidents. By age, homicides, most common between 30 and 39 years old. Surprised that homicides are higher in those, in that between 30 and 60 than it is between 20 and 29. Firearms by injury type. 25 firearms accidents caused deaths. That's a big thing that I think is something that I feel I would be concerned about if I lived somewhere where people, I wouldn't want to have a weapon in case. I wouldn't want to have. I know that people are supposed to do this, that, and the other with, put them in a locked. But the fact is that some people don't. So, suicides. So highest between 2029. I'm starting to fade here actually. I've been doing all these videos I've put together, I've made lots and lots of little videos and I'm starting to fade a little bit here. Where am I? Accidental deaths. Oh God, between 80 and 89 years old. Oh. Fall or drugs. Mainly. Look at those figures. Cool, blimey. Mainly falls over 70 years old. Oh my God, it's so sad. People haven't got somebody there to help them. Multiple drug versus single drug toxicity. Interesting. Okay, it's not telling us much about Latah County here, but I mean, yeah, Latah County, I was going to say, is it Moscow? Pause if you would like to. Hot tub drowning death, good God. Right. Manner of death. Undetermined natural. Hold on, where's homicide? Child fatalities, oh right. Okay. Whew. SCMEO has been awarded 5 grants over the past year, totaling that much. That's a lot. That's a lot of digits there. Ooh. This funding has enabled us to better prepare our office for a mass fatality event. Were they unprepared? And how did that affect things if they were unprepared? Did it affect things? Interesting. Maybe that's where Brad Little's money went. Or some of Brad Little's money, anyway. Two pages left. County demographics. See, now it isn't broken down what's going on with these different counties and the autopsies.
In random people's windows, just looking for the perfect victim to go attack. I don't get it. This case is fucking weird. I think there's something else that we don't know about. We know that he applied to work for law enforcement. They never said whether he got that position or not. For a criminology student that applied for a job in law enforcement, if he knew his ass was driving around at the same time when murders took place and his car matches the bolo, he should have turned himself in if he wasn't guilty. But he didn't do that. Why? Guilty!
Hey, it's Richard here.
So everything that we've learned about this case, if we apply that knowledge now to the things that happened back then, they make a lot more sense. Ethan and Xana were partiers. They were the partiers of the house. Remember that interview with the Sigma Chi president?
I knew them. Ethan was always in our house. Xana was a good friend before, Ethan even came up.
When the roommates were imitating each other, Dylan was imitating Xana.
Yo, is it okay if I have a party? Like just 3 or 4 people at most.
I think it's just gonna be 3 or 4 people and inviting a whole bunch of people over the house. So I think that was a common theme. There's always some truth behind sarcasm. And everyone knows that at that age, when you're 20, 21, the 21 people go out to the bars and the 20-year-olds stay home. Why would I go out to bars to pay $10 a drink when I get to stay home and drink moonshine for free? So all those times when the cops came and there was no one there that lived there, guaranteed Ethan, Xana, Dylan were probably there, but they were underage, so they didn't want to talk to the cops. I mean, this kind of tells us that they were both wide awake, like texting back and forth. So they were like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Why do they have people in here right now? Dylan was probably the more freaked out one because she saw the guy in the mask. And so the key part is that they were texting while he was in the house. Chances are they looked out the window when he left. And Bethany probably saw his car drive by. Dylan probably saw him walk up into his car. And I think as soon as he left, Dylan, probably shut the door, blocked it with the stools, and ran down to Bethany's room because she was freaked out. And I think Bethany was probably like, oh, you're overreacting. It's just Ethan and Xana, like being crazy. They're fine. We'll yell at them tomorrow. Lies! They're the killers! I have a feeling that the exculpatory stuff is that Bethany maybe had the wrong times or something, times that didn't match up. Because, if you're woken up in the middle of the night, you don't really know what time it is. Furthermore, I think this is the reason that the 911 call wasn't released either. Because I think they called and the girls were probably hysterical, talking to the dispatcher. I think a bunch of them talked to the dispatcher. And the girls were probably talking about the guy that they saw in the house last night, the noise, whatever, the car that was driving off. And they didn't want to put that out there because they didn't want Kohlberger to know that there were eyewitnesses. Kohlberger's innocent, he was framed! Once he was arrested, then the gag order was in place. And I think that's also why his traffic stop in Idaho was not released. The gag order applies to the investigating officers, so I think that whole police department is probably just to play it safe. They're not going to release anything. But other places, like when he got pulled over in Washington, they released that. Indiana. Moscow is not going to risk the case by releasing that information. But save this video and come back to it because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right about this. No! But save this video and come back to it because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right about this. No! And according to the search warrants, Kohlberger did not have an Instagram or Facebook, but he did have a TikTok. And all of those girls were posting on TikTok and tagging University of Idaho and had their whole house in the TikToks and just driving around that neighborhood, that campus once, I think you would find that house right at the top of the hill sticking out above everything else.
There seem to be some online ways of reporting safety concerns. And if we consider the possibility that, it's possible that, as I've said, that, and as the PCA says, that Dylan just went back to bed and I did nothing about it because, well, apparently she was in a frozen shock phase, but that makes me think that she would have done something about it unless somebody kind of talked her out of it and was like, oh no, it's probably not anything, it's probably just, a friend of, for example, Ethan and Xana, who clearly have, if this is a normal house, as we're led to believe, there seem to be males in and out of it. And so if somebody doesn't quite know, if the witness doesn't quite know what they've witnessed, they might report something online. A lot of people don't want to call 911 because it depends how you were brought up as well, because my family are like, honestly, my mum would die before calling 911, I swear. She really frowns upon it. Everything that she could rationalise. It's bizarre because she overreacts to some things. Let's talk about my mum for a bit. She overreacts to some things and often underreacts to things. It's like she just cannot gauge things. And it leaves me, it's left me, somebody who finds it difficult to gauge things as well. But I am somebody who would err on the side of caution, and more likely, if I'm not feeling too gaslit at the time, I'm more likely be the person who would call. But I know plenty of people who wouldn't, plenty. And it's kind of, people think you're overreacting if you do. But it's better to be safe than sorry in my mind. Anyway, so at the bottom of this, to anonymously report non-emergency criminal or suspicious activity at the University of Idaho. But then that's at the university. So I don't know. It's off campus, isn't it? I'm just wondering if there is like an alternative number. But then again, we've also got the possibility that there was some kind of attack on the Wi-Fi, online attack, which would prevent, I don't know how it works. They're have a look at this. So there are these things called telephony denial of service attacks. A telephony denial of service TDOS attack is an attempt to make a telephone system unavailable to the intended user or users by preventing incoming and or outgoing calls. This is accomplished when an attacker successfully consumes all available telephone resources so that there is no occupied telephone line. Hacktivists occasionally use TDOS attacks to annoy and harass a targeted agency. I know they use it on 911. When was the last call to 911? There was the 3 o'clock thing, but that wasn't a call, was it? They actually discovered what was going on just by being parked outside those apartments on Taylor Avenue. Malicious actors have previously used TDOS attacks as part of ransom demand by conducting a short TDOS against the targeted agency, then demanding payment to stop the TDOS. Occasionally, TDOS attacks are accidental, such as a mistake in a text message phishing, SMS phishing campaign that inadvertently directs respondents to call 911. Historically, malicious cyber actors used TDOS attacks to prevent a target from receiving notification of a pending unauthorized financial transfer. Common targets include state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, high-ranking officials, law enforcement agencies, and public safety answering points. TDOS attacks may have a short duration or occur intermittently over several days. I mean, it might be that this could be something that they'd keep close to the vest. The fact that they might have had something like this going on. I have to say that I feel like the fact that they've shown so much concern for the safety of the victims and the victims' families and everything, even when Brian Kohberger, even when they've got a suspect in custody, suggests to me that obviously lots of people think, oh, there could be a co-conspirator, and there could be oh my God, I need to shut the door, in terms of, in the form of an organisation. Because this has been called a targeted attack. A targeted attack. And there's somebody, and I've got a video of somebody who speak on targeted attacks. Bear with.
Okay. Yeah, serialized, where you have homicides that are done in succession.
Okay.
This fits more into, right now at least, into the category of a mass homicide, because you've got 4 in one location. And something I've tried to emphasize, because I don't know if the press is, if the press is kind of hooked into this or not, but from me as a former practitioner, I've worked a lot of multiple homicide deaths.
Right.
Most of the time it involves firearm, almost every time. To the best of my knowledge, I don't ever recall personally, either in my experience in New Orleans or Atlanta, having handled a quadruple sharp force injury death, a quad.
Right.
It's not something, because it's so difficult to pull off without a certain level of skill and strength. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So do you think they knew him, or that he knew them? Was this targeted? I mean, I've just got to, I just can't imagine, you know?
Yeah, I think that obviously this individual knew of them. Whether or not they knew of him, I can't say that. And I'm saying him. I believe that it's probably a male. I think that there's a lot of power involved here, physical power. It's going to take that. Again, I go back to the analogy of shooting a firearm. It doesn't take a lot of strength to pull a trigger, and it's such a primal and visceral act to stab someone. Excuse me, to stab someone, that by the time you get to the end of the first killing, there would be a level of exhaustion if adrenaline wasn't pumping. But then you think about that, you're doing it 4 times. So by the time you get to the last injury or the last death, this individual, if it is a single individual, they would be completely and totally exhausted.
Yeah.
Because it requires so much physical strength. I don't think people understand that, because it's not just you driving a sharp-edged weapon into a human body, which is difficult to do. It's them resisting, and you're having to fight that fight, and then fight whatever it is in your mind. If that individual still has, I'm not going to say empathy, but if they still have the ability to understand what it is that they're doing, where they're butchering somebody, they have to fight that as well. You know, there's not an awareness. If they're able to shut it down and they just go into this mode where they're just stabbing, and they turn into almost this kind of animalistic response, they might be completely oblivious to that. I don't know. They're so jacked up on adrenaline. And also, if there's any kind of drug that is involved in their system, there might be some kind of numbing thing that's going on with them. Who knows? I mean, right now that it's all speculative,
but
to that point.
Right. But let's speculate about this. Okay. He killed 4 people, and they were paired, 2 in a bedroom, 2 in a bedroom, correct? So he had to kill one quick enough to be able to kill the other one before they screamed and woke anybody up. It sounds like he has to have superhuman power, you know? I mean, I can't, and again, if he's alone, maybe he wasn't alone, but you know, you've seen this happen when people are on meth, but then again, I don't think anybody on meth could be that organized to do something like this. Like you said, you've never seen anything like it. How can you even begin to figure out who this person is?
I don't know. I think that probably through VICAP, which is the organization that the feds run, it's kind of like they take data from multiple sources, particularly when they begin to look into cases and try to understand these behaviors, and they can filter all of this and help develop a profile where you have, through VICAP, they can pool information.
Right.
I'll put it to you this way. The locals have, about an altitude of about 1,000 feet when they're looking at this. Okay. Feds have about a 30,000 foot observation of this. They're seeing cases that are at greater distances geographically, and they can compare and contrast these things and try to put together a profile of who might be involved in this kind of violent behavior. And maybe they've seen it before. Maybe there are other individuals that have committed similar crimes to this, and they can begin to kind of understand how this person's mind works to a certain degree. And hopefully, because the end game is, I could really care less about studying this individual.
Right.
We make a lot about studying serial killers and all that. Right now, I'm interested in them getting this animal off the streets, whoever it is, because this person is very dangerous. And I say that as ominously as I possibly can.
Scary.
If you have an individual that's out there that's capable of doing this, there are other people out there that are at risk. He needs to be apprehended as expeditiously as possible.
Exactly. We do have some questions. And
and media influencer Tisha Brody.
This appears to be a targeted incident. As you can see the number of shell casings. There were multiple shooters.
It sounded like a war was going on outside.
It looks like that she was ambushed. She was in an Uber and the Uber driver was unscathed. It's becoming very scary to live here.
Deadly plot now emerging, what police say led that gunman to open fire on that newsroom, saying, quote, "This was a targeted attack." And tonight, new images from inside the building under attack. Police ordering people to rush away from the building, from that newsroom, with their hands in the air. The suspect found hiding under a desk, taken away in handcuffs after surrendering without a fight.
We have some breaking news out of Los Angeles. The sheriff's department there says it has arrested the person responsible for the shooting death of a sheriff's deputy over the weekend. This is brand new video just into NBC News. It shows that suspect being taken into custody by sheriff's deputies early this morning. The killing of Officer Ryan Klinkenbroomer has rocked Southern California because the LA County Sheriff says it was a targeted attack. This is the key video in this case. You see a sedan pull up behind the patrol car driven by Klinkenbroomer. The sedan slows down, drives by the police car, and then drives off. NBC News correspondent Dana.
Now to a bizarre and frightening story from Wisconsin, where a retired judge was shot and killed in his home early Friday by a gunman with a purported hit list that included several prominent elected leaders. Here's CBS's Adriana Diaz.
The call for help came in around 6:30 a.m. after 2 shots were fired in the retired judge's home.
His neighbor's son from across the street is banging on the door stating that someone murdered his father.
The Juneau County Special Tactics and Response Team entered the residence and located the homeowner, a 68-year-old male who was deceased.
Police rendered aid to the suspect, 56-year-old Douglas Udi, who appeared to have shot himself. In 2005, State Judge John Romer sent the suspect to prison for 6 years on weapons charges.
File names is the first one. So a lot of times we see the attacks or infrastructure, they'll say, malware.exe or server.exe. But in targeted attacks, we've seen company name being used in the executable, company name.exe, a project that the company's name is working on. Or we see a Word document come in that has a project that the company's working on. Same malware, different hash. If you see the same piece of malware come in at the same time, but there's a little nuance of it, they feel confident in their piece of malware, but they're just trying to change up who received the file. If you could do some analysis on where these spear phishing attacks are coming from, are they targeted at everyone and people with a Gmail address, or are they only targeted to people in the finance department? Are they only targeted at people who have relationships with this group? Are they only going to senior managers? Are they only going to admin assistants? So having some